So I'll get to the callers in a minute here. Recently, world leaders came together to meet at the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference. Leaders here at home and around the world are telling us that this is the time to build back better.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
It's my plan to build back better.
Amazing, huh? Now, you know something's wrong with that. That many people trying to convince you of one thing. Alex Epstein is here, and he is the founder and president of the Center for Industrial Progress, author of the upcoming book, Fossil Future. Alex, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's amazing. What does the phrase mean, to build back better? They all are saying it. What does that mean?
Yeah, I am sympathetic to your suspicion when I hear something repeated like that. And it's particularly curious because you think about what happened with COVID is we didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like a bunch of buildings came crumbling down. It's more like we didn't use enough stuff. So what is there to build back exactly? And I think what's really going on is that there's a perception of, oh, there's crisis going on and there's opportunism whenever there's a kind of crisis. But really what they mean by build back better is, quote, build with government control. Because if you look at the society that we live in today, the world that we live in today, it's by far the most prosperous, well-off, safe world that has ever existed. Yeah. And the driving cause of that is individual freedom and capitalism. So when you're talking about build back better, well, this is the best world that's ever been built. So what's your objection to that? I think it's very curious that they think of today's world as bad fundamentally. And then they think, oh, if only we control things with government, it's going to be fantastic. And if you look at what's been happening in Europe, for example, with skyrocketing fuel prices, shortages, not even being able to keep warm before the winter, you can see build back better just means like incompetent fascism, and in particular, green fascism, which we could talk about.
Yeah, I noticed that I get the place where I normally go to get my gas that's close to my office is at one time it was like $2 or $3 or something like that, $2. Now it's almost $5. And I'm like, what the? And so I was wondering, were these people using this climate change, disguising it as a way to take control of the people? But my question is, how do they expect to get away with it? Because things are, when it comes to food prices, gas prices, they closed down the coal mines when Joe Biden became, the oil production when Joe Biden became president. Things are getting so bad for the consumers, for the voters. Do they think that the voters don't see this?
Well, I think it's more obvious than ever that they are creating problems. Like you look at, I live in California, and so in 2020 we had major blackouts, and they tried to blame that on something else, but it was really clear what had happened if you understand energy, which is they had shut down a lot of reliable power plants, namely natural gas and nuclear plants. They were overly dependent on unreliable solar and wind. And so what happened is, the late afternoon, the sun starts to fade, and then there wasn't enough wind during a heat wave, and the local states also wanted electricity. So we had blackouts, but they tried to blame it on something else. Oh, we just planned it badly. And then Texas, right, has that catastrophic freeze, and they try to blame it on something else, even though clearly the wind turbines stop working, not because they freeze, but because it doesn't blow much wind when it's super cold. But now what's happening is all of Europe, because what they've done is they've restricted fossil fuel production and transportation. And we've done the same in the US. And they said, oh, we can replace it all with solar and wind. And what's happening is that's a failure, but it's a really important moment for us to identify that, because otherwise they have this crazy narrative that, oh, the reason if prices go up, that means we need more solar and wind. But it's the opposite. It's because you shut down the fossil fuels. That's why the prices went up, because your supply is low relative to demand and the green energy couldn't replace it. So I do think it's a crucial moment to educate people.
The interesting thing is that these people, they went to this conference, but they all flew in private jets to the conference. It seemed as though they have no respect for we the people anymore. It seems as though they think that they are above us, and whatever they say and do, we're just going to fall for it.
Yeah, I think there's that element, but also it's an admission of how important fossil fuels are, because what they're basically saying is, hey, it's really important for us to get rid of fossil fuels. It's so important that we need to fly private jets. But why can't they fly private jets with solar and wind?
Right.
Because those technologies are inferior. So what they're basically saying is important things require fossil fuels. And my view is that 8 billion people's lives are important, not just a bunch of people who want to control those lives.
I remember when Donald Trump was in office there, and he did some amazing things, but a lot of people were working, things were cheaper, you could afford it. People were buying homes and all kinds, selling homes, buying homes. And that was black people, white people, and everybody. Do they think we will forget those times?
I don't know. I mean, whenever you're talking about different administrations, you have to be, all kinds of things change. So it's not necessarily just one president versus another. You need to look at things. But I think with energy, it's really, really clear.
Yeah.
Because Trump's policy was mostly, hey, let's liberate energy, and particularly American energy. We have this amazing ability to produce oil and gas and coal, and let's do that so that we have really cheap energy here, which is great for industry, great for consumers, and also we can export it around the world. And Biden's policy was clearly not that, and we're in a world where many people have Biden's policies, so we're being harmed here, and then internationally they're not producing enough, and that's why we have shortages and high prices.
You say that fossil fuel is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And why is it a good thing?
Well, it's a good thing in the same way that a life-saving medicine is a good thing, because it extends life and it has far more benefits than negative side effects. So when people talk about fossil fuels, they'll talk about, oh, there's a lot of smog in China or allegedly something with climate, but you can look at those things, but you need to look at the benefits. And what fossil fuels allow us to do is they allow us to use machines to benefit our lives, to make our lives much longer. You think about like a baby whose life is saved in an incubator. That requires low-cost, reliable energy, specifically electricity. There's 600 million people in Africa who essentially have no electricity. So my view is we need more fossil fuels because energy is crucial, and they're the only thing that can provide them low-cost, reliably for everyone in the world.
Is it possible, because as you were speaking, I was wondering, is it possible that they can convince most of the people in this country that it's best to get rid of fossil fuel? Is that possible?
Yeah, well, in a sense, if you look at what's coming out of the corporations, all of them are saying like, oh, we're going to get off fossil fuels. There's something called net zero, which basically means we use no fossil fuels in less than 30 years. So in a sense, we're getting the propaganda every day, but at the same time, we see the results. Like we see, right now we're about 10, 11% solar and wind just for our electricity, and we're already seeing problems. And it's why I think there's this dissonance between the rhetoric and then the reality. Right. I think it's really important for people to understand what's going on. And one resource I created, which everyone can access for free, is called energytalkingpoints.com. And if you go to energytalkingpoints.com, you can see every one of these issues. You can type in any issue and you'll get really good references to understand the truth about the issue.
Amazing. Nancy Pelosi released a statement in which she demanded that gender equity be made a central component of climate action. And that's for Red Voice Media. I don't even understand that. What does she mean by that?
Well, so it's really revealing because they say, oh, fossil fuels emit CO2, that's causing catastrophe. I believe it causes some warming. We've had 1 degree Celsius warming in the last 170 years. I believe fossil fuels contribute to that, but that's not a catastrophe. It's just a small amount of warming. They're saying it's a catastrophe. If it's a catastrophe, that means, you go to war, but you can't say I'm going to war, but I also need equity and I also need these other things. And it just shows that they're using a fake catastrophe just to impose everything they already wanted to impose. They're not actually treating it as a catastrophe.
Amazing. What is gender equity. What is that? Equity. Gender
I don't know.
equity.
I don't know, because these things are often packages of good and bad. So one is, don't have irrational discrimination against people on the basis of gender. But then there's also rational choosing on the basis of gender, right? Like if you have this in fire departments and military, you want to pick, your goal should be to accomplish a goal, right? So if in a military, you want to have the best people for a certain goal. So if something requires lifting 300 pounds, it's probably going to end up being mostly men. And if you say, oh, I want gender equity, then you're saying, I don't care about capability. I just want to check this box that makes no sense. So I think there's a lot of that irrational element to it.
So what is the solution, Alex? What should the people do at this time?
Well, what we should do is push for energy liberation. So liberate energy from government control. So we need more freedom now, and we need to oppose what's currently going on. So for example, on this energytalkingpoints.com website I mentioned, I have a series of articles about why the reconciliation bill will destroy American energy. So that's the most concrete thing right now. That thing, also called Build Back Better, that needs to be rejected, because that is really fascist control of every aspect of energy, trying to get rid of fossil fuels and impose green. So that is the biggest threat right now. So we should fight that. But then long term, we should fight for more energy freedom. And I hope that more politicians the next election cycle make that a cause.
Amazing. How can people get to your website and your brand new book coming up? How can people get that and all that you have to offer right now?
Thanks for asking. So the website, energytalkingpoints.com, I would say sign up for that mailing list to get everything that I have. And the other thing is I post a lot on Twitter. So it's just my name, Alex Epstein, ALEXEPSTEIN. And you'll get all you'll need from there. And then the book, Fossil Future, comes out in April, but you can get that on Amazon. And behind me, you can see my first book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. You can get that now. And if Jesse, if you want a copy, I'm happy to send you one.
I would love one. And make sure you sign it, though.
Oh, of course.
All right. Thank you, man. And we'll have you back. God bless you.
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
All right. Amazing. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.